That's true also of the Sunset Fire Hall, that area. That was in the plans for the previous Ken W. But the current Ken W says too much, have to take down all the plum trees, which are rife with blackberries. It's too big a job to take down all the trees and install them. So I don't think that's gonna happen. I'm hoping that we can do it at Oppenlander, and if not, then um, I'll look into this other location that's near the Safeway.
Great.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, well, if no one else wants to go, I'll do my check-in. So my wife and I have been participating in something called the Oregon Master Naturalist Program. I think it's like a sister program to the Master Gardeners Program. So we've wrapped up almost all of the like training for that certification. So this has been kind of a whirlwind tour of the geology and ecology and natural processes of our state, with a focus on some of the more proximate areas in the Willamette Valley. So we're excited to be almost done with that and certified Oregon Master Naturalists. I thought members of this group would be interested in the program.
Mike, for example, what's one of the things you've learned that you didn't, that's indicative of this program?
Big and little things. Like I didn't know, for example, that trillium turn purple when they get pollinated. But I also didn't know the full geological history of the Willamette Valley, with all of the, not just the Missoula floods, but the lava flows that came in from what they presume is the Yellowstone hotspot about 15 million years ago. There were two giant waves of lava that washed into the valley. So, we've done a driving tour of some of the geology of the Willamette Valley. So we stopped off and saw some glacial erratics. We stopped off down in Molalla to see something called the Molalla Eye, I believe. Some people call it the Molalla Rosette. It's a really fascinating columnar basalt feature that's off the Molalla River. It kind of looks like a series of concentric rings all made out of basalt.
I'm gonna talk to you later. You tell me what it is. I taught in Molalla for 35 years. So
Oh, neat. Yeah, it's just, hop on the road that follows the Molalla River, go south maybe 20 minutes from Molalla, and it's just kind of off the side of the road. It's beautiful.
cool.
But it's been a wonderful program. I definitely recommend it to anybody who is interested in the natural areas of this state. The focus of the program is essentially to kind of train people up to have a better understanding of the natural processes of the state, and then connect them with volunteer opportunities that are focused on things like natural resources conservation. So it's a great program. I definitely recommend it to everyone here. It's
very cool.
It's been really interesting.
Great. I'll go ahead and go next. So I did submit that ODOT letter with the revisions online, and Dylan, I think I still need to forward you the copy, so I apologize. That was on my list of to-dos, but I will go ahead and take care of that either tonight or tomorrow. So you'll have that for your records. But I did submit that, and I don't know if you all have been following the 205 tolling news, but Governor Kotek actually has delayed the tolling now until 2026. So that's, I think, great news for our community. She's taken a closer look at it along with ODOT, really in response to all of our neighboring communities voicing concern. So they're going to go ahead and take a closer look at it, and all the concerns that came in. So I think that's a success, at least, temporarily. So so it won't be happening in 2024. Rather, there's a stay on it until 2026. So again, that's great news, and I'll I'll get a copy of that letter off, like I said, Dylan, to you either tonight or tomorrow. Let's see what else. At work at DOJ, I gave a presentation this last month on gardening to all my coworkers and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. I think a lot of folks enjoyed that. I'm going to give a follow-up one this next month, focused primarily on growing tomatoes. There's, you know, especially Victoria, you know, there's a lot to it, right? With tomatoes. Yeah, I've been doing doing a 3-part gardening training series at work. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so it's a lot of fun. And also, just like you, Greg, I've been working a lot in my garden, and Victoria, you as well. So yeah, just with this extra warm weather, getting some summer veggies in the ground a little earlier than normal. So that's all I have.
That's fine.
Well, I'd like to have a kind of a tutorial on how to prune tomatoes. So if
Yeah,
you want to give one at some
yeah,
point,
you bet. I'm working on a PowerPoint right now, so
you can send it to me. Excellent.
you bet.
Start from the
I'd like
bottom.
to see that as well.
Right.
Yeah, sounds good.
Great.
So
And I think we've got Charity on the line as well.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Charity.
Charity.
Yeah.
Hi. Sorry, I just got home from driving from Seattle, so I was trying to do the dial and everything from my car, so I apologize. So an update I can give you is obviously you know that we had the Earth Day celebration at the Ale House and seemed to be very well received. People really enjoyed it. I don't know if you covered that already or not because I couldn't get in the.
no, we didn't.
It seemed like everyone really liked it and want to do it again next year. And the vendors who attended said they really enjoyed it. So yeah, so that was really good, and I think that's a neat thing that we were able to pull off. So thank you for everybody who participated too in it. And then also tomorrow evening, I was going to let everybody know, here I am, that we are having for the Eco School Network, it's their fundraisers tomorrow evening. And Zini and I are going, and it's called The Greatest Show for Earth. It should be some fun auction and raffles, all kinds of neat stuff, such as one thing that's being raffled off is a house for 4 days down in Yachats on the overlooking the ocean. Another one is a cabin in McKenzie River. And so if anybody wants to go, let me know. There's still tickets available. So that is tomorrow evening, starts at 7 to 9. And kids from all over the different districts are going to be performing intermittently during the fundraiser. So that'll be pretty neat to see as well. And am I missing anything, Regina? I'm trying to think. I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
missing.
I did mention the same,
Yeah,
that's
okay,
about
great.
it. Look, so it'll be kind of a nice experience. So we can talk about it in the following month.
Yeah. So I think that's it. And then we did the Rosemont Gives Back. I helped with just try to coordinate what they wanted to do. And they did a huge donation to the Children's Foster Agency down here. That was one of the things was to collect clothes to do that, to get back to the agency as far as to foster children. So that was really successful. And some want to start a garden now. Some of the students chose to write letters to legislation to help with some of their platforms that they were considering, such as no idling campaign for the whole district, to be like no idling campaign when you're waiting for pickup. And another one was to write for legislation about just how we can do different recycling programs for the state of Oregon, which I thought was really cool that they chose to do that as their platform. So I think that's about it.
Great, thank you. Okay, Lou, I don't know if you wanted to offer any comment before we move on to the rest of the
I
agenda.
think I missed the introductions, but I'd be glad to introduce myself. First of
Yes.
all, I guess I marched in the first Earth Day march in 1970, actually in Poughkeepsie, New York. So I've been involved, or at least very interested in the environment for a long time. Large part of my career, well, I was in IT and worked for IBM, designing and software and later consulting computers. Then I switched to teaching and I taught computer science and physics. And actually one of my favorite projects for an advanced, actually for both physics and computer science, was a model of Earth's temperature as a function of reflectivity and absorption of the atmosphere. So we did a 3-layer, but it's a global average. It's not, by region, but it's a fun project, and you can actually, model the effect of basically greenhouse gases on the atmosphere. It's interesting that we actually need some, otherwise we would have a permanent temperature below freezing.
Right.
Too much is not a good thing. So I am obviously interested in sustainability, want to learn a lot. I'd like to bring your ideas to the council. I think it would be best if you actually made recommendations, because if we have recommendations, we actually pretty much have to deal with them. Otherwise, it's just discussion, and we can, not that we want to ignore you, but we have lots of priorities, but we have to deal with your recommendations. So please recommend.
I'm sure we'll be happy to put some recommendations together. So welcome, Lou. Thank you for those comments there. So our first agenda item is the approval of the April minutes. I think we had started to talk about that previously, but it sounds like everybody's had a chance to look at those minutes. Did anyone have any comment on those before we move on? Would anyone like to move to approve the April minutes?
I move that we approve them.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the April minutes are approved. Okay, and we've got time set aside for public comment. I don't see anybody on here, but I will say that I noticed on the West Linn Facebook group earlier today, somebody was wondering about the placement of recycling bins in the Old Willamette district. There are trash cans, but there are no recycling bins. And the question was, can we get them? Are those trash receptacles managed by the city, or is that something that the individual businesses do? Dylan, I'm not sure if you know how the waste is managed on the Old Willamette district.
No, I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look into that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, yesterday I went a walk in the Willamette Drive and I was trying to find a dustbin too, a trash can or something. I couldn't find one.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
believe the city subcontracts that to actually both waste and recyclables to different companies.
Okay. Maybe we can have a bit of an offline conversation just to understand a bit more about how that's managed and poke around and see if we can't find a way to have recycling available for the public in the Old Willamette district. I think that'd be a nice thing to have.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. All right. So our next agenda topic here is the 2023 recommendations to the City Council. So at the end of 2022, the board got together and put together a list of recommendations that we wanted to put before the council for their goal setting. And Lou, I'm not sure if those have been placed into your hands, but we did issue some goals to the city.
It may be somewhere in my inbox, but sorry,
Okay.
I have not looked at it yet.
Greg, I don't know. Do you have a copy of those up and available? I don't
I
have.
do. At least I have them in my hand.
Okay.
So I can briefly go through them. I thought to begin with, I went to a meeting last night where John Williams, the city manager, presented in a very brief form the 8 priorities that the city council had selected. So I'll just briefly go through those. The first is to oppose I-205 tolling. The second is to advance just efforts to plan for and potentially create an indoor recreation center for the city. The third is the police review and the support of the committee that has now been formed to engage in that activity. The fourth is to define and fund water system capital needs. The fifth is to begin a waterfront visioning planning process. The sixth is to begin a similar vision planning process for Highway 43. The seventh is to support city sustainability issues. And the eighth is to explore a transit service in the way that we had actually kind of talked about some a few months ago. With regard to the city sustainability initiatives, the ones that I have heard about are to basically try to follow through on our recommendation to continue converting the city's fleet to electrical vehicles, as well as to replace current gas-powered landscaping equipment with electrically charged equipment. And then I was having a conversation last night and learned that there was also interest on the part of the city council to move forward with our recommendation to hire a sustainability consultant, that one hasn't been lost. So those are the pieces with regard to our recommendations that came through. Dylan, were there any others besides those that you recall from your participation in those meetings?
Yeah, so I can tell you the things that were mentioned during goal setting. It's still, the list is still being refined and has to come back to council to be formally approved. But the other things that were discussed during goal setting were review the city's current integrated pest management plan and consider adjustments, meeting with the planning commission regarding water resource area code and consider code amendments for the planning docket. You mentioned the hiring consultant to work on a targeted sustainability project, reviewing LEED certification policy for new city buildings or substantial renovations, developing a policy regarding electric and alternative fuel vehicles, including cost benefit analysis, a policy for increasing electric equipment use and reducing gas powered equipment. And then I think that's about it. And yes, SAB will have some role in a lot, probably all of that. So
Okay.
Recommendations, yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah, that sounds like a great list.
Yeah. So I guess my one question is, and it actually comes up in the agenda later, and I think we can talk about it more then, but just was any mention of the tree code in those conversations and the revision of the tree code?
No, but if you give me a minute, I feel like the tree code stuff's already on the planning docket somewhere. But let me take a quick look.
It should be. It wasn't
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
I think there's a question as to, okay, you know, we understand it to be on the planning docket, but you know, what next? And what does it being on the planning docket mean in terms of the other more detailed recommendations that we had issued pursuant to that larger goal to revise the tree code?
Yeah, can you educate me on what you'd like to see in a tree code?
Well, I think on some level, you know, I look at like neighboring Lake Oswego, for example. They hire a consultant to come in and develop a whole urban forestry plan, recognizing the value that trees and you know, a dense canopy play in a city. It increases our property values. It decreases road maintenance. They're just nice to have around. Air quality improvements, temperature drops. There's just so many excellent reasons to have nice, dense tree cover. But we don't. Our understanding is that there's no real comprehensive plan for West Linn to kind of develop that resource for the community. So something like that would be of interest to us. But then beyond that, you know, they're kind of more nuts and bolts stuff.
Can I
Is it
offer an
permit?
example?
Sorry, of
Can I offer an example?
course.
I was thinking about the idea that when a developer buys a big chunk and breaks it up, that there has to be the idea would, for a code, would say, well, you have to leave a minimum of, let's say, 20% of the trees that are there. That kind of specificity.
And, you know, one of the things that Milwaukee has done is, like, if you take out a tree, you must plant 2 more. And I think one of our concerns is that with House Bill 2001 and middle level housing, that there's going to be a lot of pressure to build on lots, to divide lots and take out the trees to kind of increase the amount of housing in town. And so we would like to have some opportunity to participate in that process and make sure that the implementation of House Bill 2001 doesn't lead to a serious reduction in the urban canopy in West Linn.
And we do have some code about like caliper removal and replacement. I don't know it off the top of my head, but the tree code evaluation and amendments is in the planning docket as a large project under the section that is, it says they're on the planning docket, but they haven't been prioritized by council. The planning docket is really long and just has way more projects than planning can cover. So planning commission and city council get together occasionally. I think they have a meeting coming up pretty soon, and they talk about prioritizing the projects. So it's on the list, hasn't been prioritized, I guess, is the bottom line. I can read you what it says. It says city's community development code encourages but does not mandate tree retention. The community has consistently requested the city establish a minimum tree retention requirement during development projects. This project would require extensive public involvement from property owners, neighborhoods, and developers. Statewide Planning Goal 5 processes would need to be followed if mandates were preferred. Evaluating the tree code programs in the municipal code is also recommended to ensure consistency. Significant staff time and budget for consultant services would be required. So, like everything else, it's a money decision to get a consultant to help that. They call it a large project, so
Right.
A lot of work.
Fortunately, there's somebody in Tigard who helped with Milwaukee, and so that there are models out there that I think we could potentially draw upon. So I think one of the things that the SAB could do in the coming year is really examine the tree codes for both Milwaukee and Tigard and get a clearer sense of the specifics and ways in which they might be, useful for West Linn.
I think it would be good to look at like Oswego and what they've done as well. They periodically have somebody come basically take an inventory of the city's trees and assess the health of the urban canopy in like Oswego.
Right. And actually, that's the sort of thing that school students could potentially do as well.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I had to leave now, so I'll drop off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Ranjini.
you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Yeah, I must admit, I think I had the impression that when something is on the planning docket, it means that like there's a plan to do it, but it sounds like that's kind of like the staging ground for things that get done.
A plan for a plan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that would warrant us testifying to council in support of having that prioritized.
Yeah, your input for prioritization would be useful.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure we'd happy to be attending a meeting and offering that input.
Right.
So,
and it is one of the recommendations that we made last year. And it's something that we've been talking about for an entire year because the city council had asked for specific recommendations for changes to the code from the SAB 2 years ago. And that was the single most important priority recommendation that we were able to offer.
Yep. Are there different city council meetings that like would be more appropriate or less appropriate to offer that input at? Or is it just, hey, there's public comment, come say your piece?
There's a part of the meeting where basically advisory board reports occur. Typically, it's the end of every meeting. It'd be nice to know if you're going to, you want 10 or 15 minutes during that period.
Okay, well, I'm sure we can coordinate and figure out a good time to.
But you want to probably get on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So regarding the remainder of the recommendations that we had made to council, Greg, did you get through the whole list?
I didn't get through the entire list. The second recommendation was to renew our base membership in the Columbia-Willamette Clean Cities Coalition to make use of their grant writing services, specifically with regard to the new federal legislation that has been passed in the last year or so. The third is to create the dashboard for the city website, and it sounds like Ranjini is really moving forward with that. The fourth is to adopt.
Just to ask a question on that one, I'm not sure that Ranjini's dashboard is this. Is she talking about getting like natural gas consumption data, electricity consumption data from the city?
Not from the city. I think that she was basically going to share information from the state and potentially the county.
Okay.
But I think getting the information from the city would be really valuable.
And I think that was the intention for that recommendation.
Yeah,
we'd like to know, is the city moving in a good direction with respect to its electricity consumption, its natural gas consumption, water consumption? And this doesn't have to be any fancy website. I mean, I think just it'd be sufficient for it to be like a little graph, and that's enough. I'm like, okay, we're doing good things here.
Good. The sixth was to reduce water runoff by pursuing the 3 strategies of tiered water pricing, more extensive use of bioswales throughout the city, and the adoption of codes that encourage the creation of gray water systems in public buildings, businesses, and homes.
Oh, interesting.
And then the final was to continue supporting and publicizing the SAB education series, but we've really kind of chosen to, as we talked about a few months ago, bring that education series to the public.
Yeah.
So those were the recommendations that we had presented back in December.
Okay, Lou, are there any aspects of that you'd like to kind of explore further here with us?
No, that's a pretty good overview. Thank you. Although, could you do me a favor? And I'm sure that document exists somewhere, but could you send me a copy of the advisor, the 2022 advice?
Yes,
definitely.
So
Mike, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I'm encouraged that a number of those items were in fact kind of talked about. So
yeah.
So thanks to whoever made sure that happened.
Yeah, that's definitely appreciated.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can turn to our next agenda item then. So we've got the summer farmers markets and the old time fair coming up, and we've discussed having a presence at those events. I think we wanted to have a discussion here to just kind of talk about like what we're visioning for that, and perhaps what we'd like to bring along with us, and any potential partnerships that we might pursue to. We had the electric bikes last year at the old time fair, but maybe there are other ideas for different groups that we could partner with. So just wanted to open it up to the group and just kind of get a sense for what we're thinking about being present at these events, what we want to tell people, and hear for your thoughts.
I could use more information. I'm signed up for a couple of nights at or afternoons at the summer farmers market, but I don't know what I really signed up for besides being at the table.
I think I'll chime in here. Now that I can sit down and out of my car. So I think the whole purpose was just to have awareness around the Sustainability Advisory Board, and to have a booth just once a month at the farmers market, so that we have information, whether it's about how do you looking for resources, right? So is there a community garden that I can tap into? Is there like the Robinwood backyard Robinwood, or is there the backyard habitat that I can make my backyard into a sustainable habitat? So basically, it's some of the organizations that we had represented at the Earth Day celebration. It's just for us to be there as members of this committee with their information to just support and the community to promote, just to have that as an awareness. A lot of people don't even know what exists, like the Westland Alliance. So it's just to be there, because there's a lot of people that come to that event, and just to be able to hand out information. You could have, if you want to do some kind of activity, like, you know, sometimes they've done things in the past, like, how much do people know about recycling? What is this thing, this container I'm holding up recyclable, like a clamshell? Most people say yes, it is, and you'll be like, no, it's actually not. So how do I recycle that? Where do I take my styrofoam that needs to be recycled? There's just little tidbits of things. We can have different things there just to help bring awareness. So that was the thought process around it.
Okay, that's the overview. It would be good to have some kind of handout then ready.
I
Yeah,
think
at the
go
at the
ahead.
Earth Day event, we did have a number of handouts. I imagine we can get our hands on some more of those as well. What
Yeah.
we might do is just, you know, kind of like let the group, yeah, exactly like Greg has. You know, maybe what we can do is just have the group, you know, email Greg and I, just, hey, we think this topic ought to be represented at the
There you
table.
go.
You know, waste management, backyard habitat certification, gardening, renewable energy, those kinds of things.
Okay.
And then we can see about getting a good selection of materials available for people to come by.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good opportunity, you know, like Charity said, to raise awareness about the board. You know, I don't know if we've ever had anyone available or come here for public comment while I've been on the board. But, you know, I'd sure like to hear more from the community about what's important to them. And that can, you know, maybe help get us some ideas of things that we might pursue as well.
Yeah,
But
it'd be
we can
neat
say,
to, like,
hey,
one of the ideas, I'm sorry, Mike, one of the ideas I
Sure.
thought was, how would people feel about adding compost as a pickup service? You know, is that something that, I'm just curious, people are really interested. I'm really interested in that, but are other people really interested in that? You know, like,
It's actually a
you
topic
know.
that we'll look at later in the meeting, because Mike in particular did some research about that. So I think
Oh, good.
it's definitely worth kind of figuring out how we can have that conversation. But
Yeah.
maybe Dylan can say a little bit about the history of that whole effort too. But I know that that's on a later agenda item. So
Great.
okay, so yeah, maybe the follow up for this is to, you know, just bounce some emails around, do some brainstorming, and then figure out how we can get materials available for people to bring to those tables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think whoever volunteers, it'd be great, because you do have to bring your own table, chairs, and shade, because those were all stolen from the city last year. So they
Oh.
don't have funding to replace them. So if we have those, we can share them with each other. Like I have, you know, fold out lawn chairs and a small table that we could share them. That's what their arts and we're going to have to do for the Arts and Culture Commission. We're just going to share ones that we have for each other. And if people who sign up, I know Victoria signed up for May, and she also signed up for the June, and also Greg signed up for June. And it's going to be the last Wednesday of every month for the summer. So if you have that Wednesday open, you're going to go anyway. You don't have to stay the whole time, because you're just a volunteer. You're not there to rent a space. It's 4 to 8, but you know, you can be there just to talk to the public. So if anyone's interested, I'm just making a little spreadsheet that we can keep track of who signed up.
You said it's going to be the last Wednesday of May, June, July, August.
Yeah, we'll just we can do the 4 months. Yep.
Okay.
I have a shade canopy that I'm willing to, you know, loan everybody. So yeah, that way you're not baking in the sun.
right.
That would be awesome.
Appreciate
Thank you.
And Dylan, last year the city loaned us a shade canopy for the Old Time Fair. Is that what has been lost?
That's different. It's a different committee. So
Okay.
that's different. But this is for the farmers market, because it's a separate organization. They had a whole trailer that was broken into, and they stole everything, and they just don't have the funding to replace it.
Oh.
No, but that's
Yeah.
something with regard to the city loaning us like a canopy that you had last summer. Do you know whether that's still around?
I don't. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, Research just volunteered his. I'm
Yes.
able to get funding to buy one for the Arts and Culture Commission. So I'm requesting funds just so we have one, because we're going to pass around because people want to be there every week because we're covering 2 districts. So
Okay.
I have lots of people. So that's what we're doing for that one.
Good.
I imagine I'll try to volunteer for the July and possibly the August. I won't be here for the May or the June. Okay. Anyone else have anything to offer on this topic before we move on?
I guess the only other thing would be that for the old time fair, we would basically be doing the same thing that we would otherwise be doing, like on the Wednesday nights.
Yeah, I think so. And if people wanted to have just information at that one to have like an activity, maybe because it's on Saturday, something about, I mean, kids could take away a seedling to plant or paint a rock or something fun for some kids to do. It's fun to have an activity there for families or something to bring them over to your booth besides just handing out a pamphlet. Might be kind of
Right.
fun to have that at the fair.
Well, maybe Charity, you and I could talk about that and just kind of figure
Okay.
out like what activities would be good to include, and then I can talk with Terry and see what person to contact with regard to getting electric bikes
Okay.
next to the our site again, which should be
Yeah.
funded next year. So
I
next year.
I like that idea of kids painting rocks. They can paint flowers on them or trees or leaves or something, you know?
Yeah, we're doing that actually as an activity for the Arts and Culture Commission. And because one of the artists thought it was a great idea just to have, like I said, at our booth. So why not just take that idea, borrow it with pride and do it, because it's gonna be a fun thing to do. Why not? So they can come and paint a rock, and we're gonna have them like they can either leave it around the city for people to find, or they can take it home.
Great. Sounds good.
Yeah.
See
I've
a
had
lot
my
of those at
front
Mary.
yard bomb. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I see a lot of those painted rocks at Mary S. Young. It's really sweet.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
I just really quick, I meant to mention at Crest, if you're familiar with Crest, which is the organization that supports the school districts with all the school gardens, they have tons and tons of starters that are pretty nice size that they're selling. They sold for their plant sale. They still have a lot. If anybody wants starters, they're only $3 a piece, and all the money goes to the Crest School District organization. You just go down and pick them up. So
Where is that at?
Crest is in Wilsonville, because it's,
Okay.
for both this Westland and Wilsonville, it's down off the Boones Ferry exit,
Nice.
next to one of the Boones Ferry School. So they have lots of tomato starters, marigolds, jalapenos, basil, some other zinnias. I think she has zinnia starters, lots of them. So they're all just $3, and they're like pretty big. They're nice little size guys, but she's got a ton. So if anybody needs them, just let them know you want to come down there.
Charity,
Get
could
some.
you just email us with where that is?
Yeah, I'll send you the website that you can just contact them and let them know that you want to come down and pick them. We'll have them ready for you to pick up. You just tell them what you want.
Yeah,
Nice.
great.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next agenda item is code update. So we've talked about the tree code. If there's anything else that we wanted to bring up with respect to that, that'd be a good opportunity. Otherwise, we could move on to the EV charging and heat pump aspects of that. Okay, I guess I had a question about EV charging, and for those who don't know, you need a special breaker and conduit run out to actually have an EV charging station that charges at a reasonable rate in your garage or externally, and that many older homes just don't have that in place. So there's a desire to have provision for that kind of installation as a requirement for new construction. I think we've talked about this previously, and there was a little confusion about like how to make that happen. But I wanted to draw attention to Oregon Statute 455.417, and maybe I'm misunderstanding the meaning behind this, but it says essentially that building electrical service sized for the anticipated load of electric vehicle charging stations that has overcurrent devices necessary for electric vehicle charging stations, or sorry, forgot the first part. But it sounds like, to my mind, that the state has recently adopted a provision that says that that's a requirement for new construction. I'm not a lawyer, but perhaps our resident SAB lawyer can comment on whether this applies to us.
I could, yeah, I'd be happy to follow up with y'all on it. What was the ORS you're looking at?
Yeah, 455.417.
455.417. Okay.
Yeah.
The agenda.
I'll take a look at that and get back to you guys.
Okay, because if I'm reading this correctly, I think that it might not be anything that the SAB has to pursue. It may just already be handled at the state level.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you would understand, Dylan?
I haven't read the code. I was just looking it up myself for the first time.
So it says, the title is Provision of Electrical Service Capacity for Charging Electric Vehicles in Newly Constructed Buildings. And they give some definition. The Director and Department of Consumer and Business Services shall adopt amendments to the state building code to require newly constructed buildings described in section 3A of this section. So 3A, not sure I see that. I see a 3B, but anyway, will include provisions for electrical service capacity for electric charging vehicles. And then they talk about conduits and things like that that are a little bit more detailed. But to my mind, this sounds like the state requires it for new buildings now. I think
that's actually, I mean, that's something I'm really interested in anyways. I've been trying to do that to my own home. And so yeah, I don't want to just give an off the cuff answer.
Oh
here.
yeah, sure.
So, yeah, let me take a look, and I can email you all or bring it up at the next meeting. Either way.
Okay.
So yeah.
I discovered this in the context of looking at the climate friendly and equitable communities rulemaking. This came up. I don't know if this is something that the legislature put together to go along with that, but I'm curious as to what this means for our community and the building code.
Yeah. Good question.
And would anybody have enough knowledge just about electrical panels to be able to say, like, if a house were able to basically handle EV charging, would it have enough capacity then to also deal with the heat pump?
I feel competent to look at that kind of problem. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Oregon. Deal with electricity every day, essentially. I'm not an electrical engineer, so I'll say that much, but happy to look at that.
Looks like Victoria.
Yeah. Overall experience, I had one installed for my car 3 years ago, and just signed up today to get a heat pump installed, and I will have to have a different electrical bid for that.
You don't have to.
I will have to. I believe so, because it's
a different electrical what?
Panel, I think.
Okay.
I have to look at the small print. There was a lot of print, a lot of signing.
Yeah.
I'm supposing that the concern there may just be that the breaker box, the breaker box that you have may just not have space available for another breaker. Typically, an electrical feed into a house is going to be a 220 feed. But
well, my breaker box now will take the car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'd have to look it up, but I have it here somewhere. Whether I had to, I just don't want to do it while we're flying together.
Okay.
But I imagine you'd need additional circuit breakers, and there may not be room for them in your current breaker box.
That's my suspicion.
Yeah. So it seems like if we could have both of those questions answered for the next meeting, that would really be helpful. And we can know, like, whether we could let this one go.
Sounds good.
I did look for any ORS equivalent for heat pumps. I did not see anything about that. I think there may be some some expectation that if you have a heat pump, you don't have a furnace, or you don't have a like a central air conditioner because it's a combined unit, and that if a house can already power those devices, then it should be able to power a heat pump as well. But for homes that maybe don't currently have like a central air conditioner to swap out the circuit with, that might be the reason for it.
Okay, I found the small print on this. It says install a blah blah electrical disconnect for the exterior compressor. Install a 15 amp exterior service receptacle per code requirements.
A service receptacle is the plug.
Yeah. So I don't, a 240 volt electrical disconnect. I don't know what that is.
That basically is just the breaker. They want to make sure that they can cut the power feed to your unit to service it.
So they have to install that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I can find so far right now.
Okay, so yeah, we can keep digging on this, and it may be the case that the city doesn't have any action that they need to take to require these things. I know one of the things that when we met with Natalie Rogers, she said in many circumstances that like there may be existing state statutes that kind of go in line with the things that we hope to see on a municipal level, and that in some circumstances it may just be like drawing attention to those, because it's difficult for city governments maybe to know every little nook and cranny of the state law or state codes. So there may be other opportunities for us to point out stuff like 455.417.
Yeah,
If that is indeed what I think it is.
be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else anybody'd like to add on this topic? Okay, our next topic here is a discussion of curbside composting. So this is a topic that we've discussed a decent number of times, and we've had West Linn Refuse and Recycling come in to chat with us about the possibility of adding this service. When we last spoke to them, they had mentioned that at some point the city had requested a kind of a pro forma cost analysis of adding that service to the curbside pickup. Dylan was kind enough to forward me the information that West Linn Refuse and Recycling had put together. I believe it was back in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And it looked like back then it would be about $2.50 to $3 per person or per address, accepting multifamily homes, and that it would not be a opt-in, opt-out program. It would be if you live in a single family residence, you have the service and it's the additional cost. I think at that time the council declined to move forward with that as an add-on. But we're 7 years away from that analysis, and maybe things have changed as far as what they can offer at that price point or at a different price point. And we have a new council that may have different feelings about whether that's something that the city would benefit from incorporating. Dylan, is there anything I didn't capture in that recap there?
No, I think you got most of it. I know I mentioned, I think in an email that, West Linn Refuse came to council just a week or two ago, and they did talk about all their costs, and they do a rate increase. And I can't remember what it was, something around $2 or something, of just a general rate increase already. So taking on composting would be on top of that.
Yeah. Okay.
They did present something that's somewhat comparable to Ridwell's service. Slightly different cost structure, but they're presenting that as a possibility.
Is there? Could you speak more to that? I'm curious about what they spoke about there and how it compares to Ridwell.
Their cost structure was something like a fixed rate per month, plus each time you wanted to pick up, you had to either call them or notify them on their website, and then there would be I think a $9 charge for a pickup. But they would basically provide similar breakdown of recyclables like Ridwell.
Interesting.
Okay.
And you can look at the last council meeting, the presentation that Westland Refuse did is in there, and it talks about some of the things they accept, like clamshells might have been on there, like plastic film. There was a lot of the things that Ridwell's now doing that now the hauler's going to start doing. Yeah.
Just to chime in here, this has happened in Portland proper for my sister-in-law and other people that are part of the eco school and their neighborhoods in Portland. The cities have declined Ridwell being able to give their services because they state that they can do that service. And it's been a real debacle and a very hot and heavy topic. Just giving you the FYI on that, because they're fighting against the city pickup services now because they say they don't know how to do it. They basically take all the clamshells and take the recyclables and just dump it into the landfill. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing with it. That's what I've been told by my sister-in-law and also by other people that are on the board for the Eco School Network who want to have Ridwell back, and they've been told they cannot have it anymore. And also Ridwell does not do anything with composting at all. So this is a totally separate subject with the composting being added just to our current service.
I have a discouraging note. I was in Boulder over the weekend, and as we all know, it's the epicenter of eco-fabulousness in Boulder. They have had this service for a long time where kitchen scraps are in with the yard debris. And they've had to cut back on what they can put in because so many people were not following the rules. So you no longer can put your napkins and your tea bags and whatnot in, only food. And it's just an indication of how so many people are not ready to do this. Even in Boulder. We'd have to do a lot of educating.
I think it could be area to area because we did this at the schools. We had composting done and all scraps, all food went into the composting, and the city would pick them up and go take them to be turned into energy. So we didn't have to do anything with the children except just take your food scraps and put them in this bin, and it's going to go, we take it to be composted. And so, and the city came and did it. So I think that's area to area. And when I lived in California, you could put everything in your composting, everything. Didn't matter. That was the green bin. And if it was a food scrap, you put it in there. It didn't matter what it was. So I think it varies from area to area. I think we'd have to find out from them what exactly their composting regulations would be.
Okay.
I'm guessing there's maybe some concern with how some tea bags, for example, are not made with they're plastic.
Yeah.
So you can't compost that.
Right.
I think it's the same situation we run into recycling now. There's so much stuff that people put in the recycling bins that are not recyclable.
Yeah.
Right. Clamshells.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So any sense about how to kind of move forward with this?
My impression is. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say my impression is that we would probably need another estimate of the cost added on. We would need them to basically determine whether or not this is an opt-in program or an all-in program, and based on that, I think it's up to council to make the decision as to whether or not that's something that they want to ask community members to pay a little extra for.
I'm going to have to depart now, but thank you.
Okay, thanks for joining us, Lou.
Thank you.
It sounds like it would need to follow the same trajectory as the previous effort to get this service added to our curbside pickup.
Yes.
What's it going to cost? What are the details? And council buy-in on it.
Okay.
And I will add, I did ask during the Westland refuse discussion at council. I wasn't at that meeting, but I did ask about if because business composting was being discussed. I know that because it was in the presentation. but I think household composting came up, and I was planning to go back and listen to that council meeting and see what they said about it exactly. But it did sound like there was some interest from council, so I'm
Great.
I could start by, we have a contact at Westland Refuse, and ask them those questions if they can give us an updated cost and the opt-in question. If there's anything else you want me to ask, let me know. But I can get the process going on with that much at least.
Sure. I think one other question would be, is this a separate new bin or is this same old brown bin? Compost separate, or is it yard debris and compost together?
Okay.
That would be, I think so.
My impression was that it was all in the brown bin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my impression as well. But yeah, I can ask that as well.
Okay.
So that wouldn't require a separate pickup then, if everything were in the brown bin. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, I think there's I was looking through some of those old documents, and it did say some things about there's additional cost because the classification of the waste is higher now or something, so that there is an added cost from that. But bin wise, it's this. I think it's going to be the same. But I'll
Yeah.
ask.
I think the majority of the extra cost is that they have to take it to a different processing facility.
Yeah.
And there's probably an additional fee for, for taking it there, but also just a cost for hauling it somewhere different.
I see.
I think they said in the meeting that we had with them that the composting facility that accepts the food waste is just further away, and so there's additional hauling cost.
Got it.
But maybe they can break that down for us. I mean, there's probably not a way to separate out those two costs, but that was, I think, what they had told us.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that topic? Okay. So next up is just want to have a discussion about potentially proposing to council that they change the name of this board. I think one of the ideas that had been proposed was to rename this the Westland Sustainability and either Resilience Board or Emergency Preparedness Board, something to that effect. And that perhaps this board could take on a larger remit of not just sustainability, but also emergency preparedness and community resilience. I feel like they kind of all go together, and in some circumstances, separating them out is unnecessary and maybe even counterproductive. Any thoughts on kind of changing the nature of, or proposing the board change its name and activities a little bit?
Well, I've got a question for Dylan, as since one of his hats is emergency management, how you would feel about that, and what you see as the potential value or potential problems of moving in that direction.
I saw those eyebrows go up.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't have a good answer yet. It's something I want to talk to, John and others a little more about. I know a lot of you were picked because picked by council because of your more experience in more environmental issues, and there are tons of environmental issues. I mean, it's already like a very big topic. So there's that. I really don't have a good solid answer one way or the other. The name change would take a lot of work. I mean, not a lot, decent amount of work to do a resolution and legal and council approval and all the code changes. It takes some work. So I'm wondering, I guess I'm wondering where it goes, what's the outcome? This group is really going to take on a bunch of emergency management stuff. I don't know if members are interested in that.
Yeah, I feel like that might be opening a Pandora's box a little bit. I mean, personally, I like the idea of kind of staying where we're at with the name and our focus. Emergency preparedness. I think there's a lot to that. What exactly are we talking about there? I don't know, but So yeah, just a little concerned about, the breadth of it, that maybe that's taking on a lot more, or just really broadening our focus when, as Dylan said, I mean, there are a lot of environmental issues that, you know, and it's going to keep increasing, I think, for the months and years to come. But I mean, I'm open to change, but that's just my initial thoughts. So.
But I would say, regardless of what this board is named, we have a lot of leeway to, choose the business that we pursue, in partnership with what council expects of us, and wouldn't require a name change to, do more focus on whatever we decide we want to be doing. If we want to have a particular focus on making sure that people are ready for heat events, I mean, I think that would be part of the sustainability board's efforts.
Yeah.
That's
it
a
could mean a
great
lot of
point,
things.
yeah. Like the heat dome, like that's, it's tied with environmental issues. So yeah, we
Yeah.
could talk about that, or the ice storms, or wildfire reduction, things like that. That's all tied in, I think, with already under the banner we already have.
Yeah. And I don't think any of us pictured this as being something that's, more akin to emergency management. I think that would probably be much more under the like public safety
Right.
board. But just things of making sure that the community is like resilient against things like that, as a preparatory matter.
And from my standpoint, kind of more than emergency management, my real interest is in encouraging mutual aid and mutual support in the event of emergencies, both short term and long term. And looking at the community mapping process as it existed, although it didn't go very far always, it really laid a foundation for basically encouraging neighbors to build the kind of trust and social networking that would be really advantageous in the case of a natural emergency or a long-term economic emergency. None of us know what's going to happen at the end of the month when the debt ceiling isn't increased. And we may find ourselves in a lot of economic pain middle of the summer. And so it's just useful to think not only about the environmental as it relates to this, but also kind of looking at economic instability, the problem of homelessness that came up at last night's meeting, ways in which we can respond to those kinds of issues as more and more people potentially face serious needs. And so for me, at issues like sustainability and mutual aid or mutual support, and how to actually kind of enhance the capacity of our community to provide that support. So, just in terms of clarification, that's what I am really interested in trying to figure out how we can foster. And it doesn't really fall under kind of emergency preparedness, although it is a central part of emergency preparedness, is that capacity for people to come together and support one another in difficult circumstances.
And I would add, I know that, Greg, that's like really your focus, like this neighborhood resilience thing, which is something we are working to get back, a new structure, like a mapping program.
Yeah.
I have reached out and tried to get a CERT program here, and there's just not enough resources to do that. So we are going to bring back.
Program?
Sorry, say that again.
What sort of program did you say?
Oh, CERT. It's Community Emergency Response Teams.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's a similar like neighbors get ready. What are your equipment? What are your supplies? Kind of thing. But it takes a lot of resources. Fire departments in other cities usually run them. We don't. Ours is not willing to, I guess. And our police doesn't have the capacity. So we are looking at bringing back some sort of community preparedness program.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely would encourage, once we get kind of further down that road, this group's help with that. And I kind of agree with Mike. I don't think we need a name change to get your input and to get your help with those kind of things. I'm also working with the county on our natural hazard mitigation plan. And when that gets further along, and we have a draft plan, I would imagine bringing this group into that as well. So I think there's plenty of opportunities without like a normal name change. So I could take that stance as well.
I was basically just pursuing something that Terry Shoemaker had felt would be a good idea. So I have no particular stake in the name change per se, but I think just kind of keeping these ideas in the forefront of our minds, I think would be valuable. Mm-hmm. So thanks for having the conversation.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate your interest in the neighborhood resilience thing and getting neighbors in and involved and ready, because it's a big deal, and we need that community like grassroots, because people just don't do it. When we put out things, get your kit ready, get prepared. Like people just don't listen most of the time. So neighbors need to encourage neighbors. So we need that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was remarkable to see how many people were just like milling about the streets after the ice storm, talking to each other.
Yeah.
I agree with all you guys. I think that we have enough on our plate. Let's don't change the name right now.
I'm just out of my curiosity, has the city ever discussed having an advisory board that focuses on things like emergency preparedness?
They've had one in the past, yeah.
Guess that dropped away, no longer exists.
It kind of dropped away when it gets shifted to other police things, and kind of died out.
Actually, as I understand it, COVID was kind of largely the cause of that. Yeah.
So the emergency preparedness board did not survive an emergency.
Exactly. It was a problem.
Sad.
All right. Okay, and looks like the last thing we have on our agenda here is just to kind of touch base on any of the like more individually focused efforts that we've discussed previously. I know, for example, I've noticed that some of our largest city parks don't have bike racks in them. At one point, I was in touch with Ken Warner, who said that they're paving the overflow lot at Mary S. Young Park, and I've been told that there's going to be a bike rack at that park. So I live pretty close to there, so I end up at that park maybe 5 to 7 days a week, and I'm just kind of keeping an eye out for like, what was that going to be where the bike rack is going to be, and crossing my fingers that it's going to be somewhat in the shade. But hoping to see that gets put in as part of this project. I was told it was, and it's part of I forget the name of the document, but there's some like long-term like open spaces or green spaces visioning process that the city went through at some point. And it says, yes, we need more bike racks.
They're going to have that drawn in where they're going to put it on the plan.
I'm sure they will. Yeah, I haven't seen the plans.
You can ask.
See, I should.
And tell them it's not in the shade. Move it.
Dylan, do you know where I might be able to find those plans?
Ken Warner's office.
Not the top. That might be Ken Warner's office. I was just looking on the website right now, seeing if I could find it.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that we have time to talk about anti-idling charity and just see like where that stands. It was one of the things that you had talked about having conversations with the school about, and I'm just wondering like whether or not we could support you in doing that. It's not really a kind of policy issue, but
yeah. So there was a presentation done by one of the schools that did a no idling campaign, and so I passed on the plan to the teachers that their classes took on the no idling campaign, and it was suggested that they take it to the district, because that way the district does it for all schools to make it as far as equitable, and they buy the signs and they put the signs, no idling, young lungs at work, the whole thing. So I can find out where they are and offer to see if they want any more help with that. I don't know where it is at this point, because it takes some time obviously to go to the school district, but I will offer to say, if you want our support, they think it's going to be what they found from the school in Portland was it was very powerful having these letters from the students, and the students made a video. It was really well done. They did a really nice job, but it takes work to pull it all together and getting the sign. So it became bigger than what I think they anticipated. They were just going to do it for Rosemont, and then it was suggested by the district that they should just present it and say that way the entire district, they have to do it for all schools, because it became a bit more of a beast. But let me find out where they are with that.
And Mike, could we ask about the recyclable plastic garbage bags, and maybe have Dylan say a little bit about the folks who had contacted you about having the city buy recyclable bags?
Yeah, Dylan, I think you had let us know that a community member had approached the city about purchasing recyclable bags for distribution and sale throughout the city. I don't know if you could give us any additional information on like what those bags are made of, what, you know.
I didn't have, there wasn't much more information than that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have taken more research to go down that road. And I think I mentioned we didn't really have a mechanism to sell them, really.
No, that's what, yeah.
That was kind of the problem. Somebody would have to vet the product, and then we would have to have a way to sell them.
Okay.
Mike and I were wondering how to respond to these folks. And I think my sense was that, you know, just given the fact that the city isn't going to, you know, hire somebody to kind of handle all of that, like it's almost like a part of a staff position, that it really was not the kind of the logical route to go with that idea. But at the same time, I didn't want to totally put the kibosh on the idea as well.
I'm sure this person is welcome to sit out in front of City Hall or Safeway or wherever.
Yeah.
Free bag.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I wanted to ask a little bit about so Municipal Code Section 5.470 basically states that properties are not permitted to let invasive and noxious weeds grow unchecked. I'm curious about how that gets enforced, or what mechanisms there are for maybe trying to get it enforced.
It's complaint-based enforcement, like a lot of our enforcement. So people have to call into the dispatch, the non-emergency dispatch, and then that goes to the code enforcement, starts a file. You know, they go out and see if it meets the standard and for the code, and then they have to do a notice letter, and there's a big process in the code after that, like certified letters and appeal process. And then, you know, if they don't do it, we can get a contractor to do it and put a lien, and it's a lot of work. So but it's complaint based is the bottom line.
So if we start making complaints, does that in any way obligate the city to pursue resolution to those complaints, or is it possibly like, thank you for your complaint, we have limited resources and this is not on the top of our priority list?
I mean, I definitely think there's prioritization with everything. If it became overwhelming, I don't know that they would decline it. I feel there is some obligation that they go out and at least look at it. I don't know their day-to-day details on how that works, but.
What about dealing with invasives on city properties and the prioritization with regard to that? Like, I live, you know, next to the bike path by Willamette Park, and you know, people have really tried to control the ivy and the blackberries. The ivy's pretty good. The blackberries, without being dealt with like annually, basically just kind of come back with a vengeance. And you know, I realize it's an issue just in terms of resources, but it's also a concern that invasives, you know, basically spread from where they are into private property as well. And so I just wonder about how to get the city to actually control invasives more successfully than they are at the moment.
I will say, it is a resources issue. our parks, like parks maintenance staff, like per how much they have per acre, each staff has a per acre, if you do the math, it's really high for our city. We have a low maintenance staff per acre.
Yeah.
And I know that our parks, like, they rely a lot on volunteers, like volunteer programs in every park. And that's where a lot of our invasives get picked up, is by volunteers.
Yeah.
Has the city worked with the Soil and Water Conservation District on any of this issue?
I don't know. I know they work with Solve to do volunteer things. I don't know what the Soil and Water, what do they do?
They are a state-run agency that is responsible for essentially the conservation of water and soil resources. And one of the things that they do is to help keep invasives in check. Many soil and water conservation districts have grant programs to help with invasive species management or soil conservation, things of that nature. Perhaps I can reach out to our Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District and invite them to a future meeting, just to kind of talk about the services that they offer and how maybe they could help the city with maybe some grant funding or other management resources that could help the city in its effort to manage the invasives.
Or maybe they could reach out directly to the park staff.
Yeah, I'm sure both would be good.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear from them personally.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I look at the state of the invasives in our community, and I wonder how long many of these natural spaces have before it's just too much. One of the big issues with invasive species is not that they're unsightly; it's that they completely disrupt the ecological processes of a natural area, and then that area just ceases to be what it used to be.
Yeah.
There's no young trees in Mary S. Young Park, for example, except for the ones that were planted. And so if the forest can't replenish itself, like, it's not going to be there eventually. And I personally don't go to the parks for the parking lots and the bathrooms.
It'll be a big pile of ivy. Right?
Yeah. But I know we're getting to time here, but that's something that I'm definitely willing to chase down and see if we can get more information on and maybe some help from them.
Thank you, Mike. That's a great idea.
Okay. Well, I think we've gotten to the end of our agenda. Is there anything else anybody would like to add before we adjourn?
I will try to get the minutes done in the next few days, and then include like the action list, because I've jotted down several things.
Okay.
So take a look at the minutes when you get them on your email, and just see whether there are any things on that action list that you said you were going to do.
There is something on last month's that I'd like forwarded to this month for me. Getting the backyard habitat to talk to the gardeners.
Oh, you did talk to the gardeners?
No, that's an action item I spaced on completely.
Okay, good.
So I would like to see that continued forth.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, then I think we can adjourn.
Thank you all for a good meeting.
You.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Great.
Bye.
Nice evening.
Thanks, Mike, for facilitating.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Good.
Good night.
Thank you, Dylan, for making it all happen.
You're welcome. See ya.
Great.